Since the very dawn of human consciousness, a profound and persistent question has echoed through the ages. It is a question whispered in the silence of the heart and pondered under the vastness of the starry sky. Men and women from every corner of the earth and every era of history have felt an inner calling, a deep-seated yearning for something more than mere existence. They have sought a higher truth, a reality that transcends the fleeting nature of worldly life. This quest is not confined to a single culture or creed, it is a universal impulse woven into the very fabric of our being. It is the search for a way to purify the soul, to quiet the noise of our desires, and to draw closer to a presence that feels both infinitely vast and intimately near, the divine. This spiritual journey has taken countless forms, each shaped by the landscape, language, and imagination of its people. We see its earliest expressions in the primal rhythms of tribal shamans, who drum themselves into states of trance to commune with the spirit world. We find it in the profound stillness of Hindu yogis, lost in deep meditation in remote forests, their bodies disciplined to serve a higher purpose. We hear it in the resonant chants of Buddhist monks, their voices filling the silent air of secluded caves. This same call moved Jewish Essenes to seek purity through fasting in the stark beauty of the desert, and inspired Christian hermits to find God in the profound solitude of a life dedicated to prayer and contemplation. Further east, this quest for spiritual purity shaped the lives of the Zoroastrians, who lived by a strict code of truth and righteousness, seeing the world as a battleground between light and darkness. And in the heart of the Islamic world, it gave rise to the Sufis, mystics who sought to dissolve their very selves in the ocean of divine love, often through the mesmerizing ecstatic dance of the whirling dervishes. Each path, though distinct in its rituals and philosophy, shares a common thread. It is the story of those who chose to step away from the conventional pursuits of wealth, power, and pleasure, believing that in letting go of the world, they could grasp something far more enduring. Their stories are a testament to the human spirit's relentless pursuit of meaning. They are tales of immense sacrifice, profound discipline, and ecstatic union. They represent a courageous attempt to answer life's ultimate questions. Who are we? Why are we here? And what lies beyond the veil of our everyday perception? This is the journey of those who looked inward to find the infinite, who gave up the transient world not out of disdain for life, but out of an overwhelming love for a reality they considered eternal. Their legacy is a rich tapestry of wisdom, a guide for all who continue to seek a deeper connection to the mystery that surrounds us and resides within us. The path chosen by these seekers is often one of renunciation, a deliberate turning away from the distractions of the material world. This concept, known as asceticism, is not about self-hatred or the punishment of the body. Instead, it is a profound spiritual technology, a method for recalibrating the human instrument to perceive a finer, more subtle reality. The core belief is that our worldly attachments, our desires for possessions, status, and sensory pleasure, create a kind of static that interferes with our connection to the divine. By voluntarily simplifying life, fasting, and embracing silence and solitude, the ascetic aims to quiet this static. It is a process of subtraction, of removing the non-essential, in order to reveal what is truly essential. This journey of letting go has been expressed in beautifully diverse ways across civilizations. For some, it meant retreating to the raw, untamed wilderness. The desert fathers of early Christianity, for example, found in the stark emptiness of the Egyptian sands a perfect crucible for forging the soul. There, far from the clamor of cities, they confronted their inner demons and sought a direct, unmediated experience of God. Similarly, Hindu sannyasis would sever all ties with their families and societal roles, wandering as homeless pilgrims with nothing but a begging bowl and a profound faith in Brahman, the ultimate reality. Their homelessness was not a tragedy, but a symbol of their true home being in the infinite. For others, the path of renunciation was not one of complete isolation, but of communal discipline. Monastic orders, seen in both Buddhism and Christianity, created structured environments where seekers could support one another in their shared spiritual goals. Life within the monastery walls was governed by strict rules of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Every moment of the day, from the pre-dawn prayers to the manual labor in the fields, was designed to cultivate mindfulness and turn the heart towards God. This collective approach provided a framework that protected the individual from the temptations of the outside world while fostering a deep sense of spiritual camaraderie and shared purpose. Ultimately, whether practiced in the solitude of a cave or the structured environment of a monastery, the goal of asceticism remains consistent. It is the liberation of the soul from the tyranny of the ego. The fasting, the prayers, the long vigils, and the simple living are all tools designed to break down the walls of the self-centered mind. It is in this state of emptiness, this sacred void, that the mystic hopes for a divine encounter. This is the paradoxical truth at the heart of their journey. By giving up everything, they believe they can gain everything. It is a courageous trade of the finite for the infinite, the worldly for the divine, in the timeless and sacred dance of the soul. Long before the first stone was laid for a temple, and long before the first sacred text was ever written, humanity had its first mystics, its first spiritual guides. These were the shamans. Emerging from the deep mists of the Paleolithic era as far back as 30,000 years ago, these figures were the original architects of the human spiritual quest. In the vast, untamed landscapes of Siberia, across the windswept plains of Mongolia, deep within the jungles of the Americas, and on the ancient continent of Africa, tribal communities looked to these special individuals to mediate between the visible world and the unseen realms. They were not priests of an organized religion, but masters of spirit, technicians of the sacred who understood that the veil between worlds was thin and could be pierced. The shaman's worldview was profoundly different from our modern, separated one. For them, the world was not a collection of inanimate objects but a living, breathing entity, pulsating with spirit and energy. Every rock, river, tree, and animal possessed a consciousness, a life force that could be communicated with. The spirits of ancestors were not gone but remained present, watching over the tribe, offering guidance or issuing warnings. In this interconnected cosmos, the shaman served as the essential bridge, the vital link ensuring harmony between the human community and the wider spiritual ecosystem. They were the keepers of a sacred knowledge passed down through generations, a wisdom that spoke of balance, respect, and the intricate dance of life and spirit. This ancient calling was not a position of political power in the conventional sense, but one of immense responsibility. The shaman was often a healer, a prophet, a psychopomp who guided the souls of the dead, and a mystic who journeyed into the depths of the cosmos to retrieve lost knowledge or power. Their authority came not from inheritance or wealth, but from direct, personal experience. They were individuals who had often undergone a profound crisis, a near-death experience, or a spontaneous visionary state that marked them as different. This initiatory ordeal was a spiritual death and rebirth, which endowed them with the ability to navigate the treacherous landscapes of the spirit world on behalf of their people. These primordial mystics laid the foundational stones for nearly all the spiritual traditions that would follow. The core idea that one can achieve an altered state of consciousness to connect with a higher reality is a shamanic one. The use of rhythmic sound, disciplined focus, and altered breathing to induce a trance state is a technology they pioneered. The belief in a soul that can journey independently of the body and the concept of a multi-layered universe are all echoes from this ancient past. Before there were yogis, monks, or dervishes, there was the shaman, dancing by the firelight, their silhouette flickering against the cave wall, undertaking the first human journeys into the mystery of the soul. At the very heart of the shaman's practice was the power of rhythm. The drum, more than any other tool, was the shaman's sacred vehicle, the horse or canoe that would carry their soul into the spirit world. Crafted from wood and animal hide, the shamanic drum was considered a living entity in itself, a microcosm of the universe. Its circular frame represented the cosmos, and its hide was the bridge between the earth and the sky. When the shaman struck the drum, they were not merely making music, they were replicating the primal heartbeat of creation itself. The steady, repetitive, and driving beat was a powerful auditory technology, designed to shift the consciousness of both the shaman and the listeners, creating a sonic portal to another reality. The effect of this rhythmic drumming is not just spiritual folklore, it has a profound psychophysiological basis. The relentless, monotonous beat entrains the brainwaves, gradually leading the practitioner from the ordinary beta state of waking consciousness into the deeper alpha and theta states associated with meditation, dreaming, and trance. As the tempo increased, the rhythm would build a powerful momentum, an acoustic wave that seemed to vibrate through the very bones of those present. This sonic immersion would dislodge the rational mind from its throne, allowing a more ancient, intuitive part of the psyche to awaken. The world of ordinary perception would begin to dissolve, and the inner landscape of the spirit would start to emerge in its place. Alongside the drum, the shaman employed the human voice in its most primal form. Chanting, guttural sounds, and the imitation of animal calls were all part of the sacred soundscape. These vocalizations were not arbitrary but were believed to be the language of the spirits themselves. By mimicking the cry of an eagle or the growl of a bear, the shaman invoked the power and spirit of that animal, borrowing its strength and wisdom for the journey ahead. The chants were often hypnotic, consisting of sacred syllables repeated over and over, weaving a tapestry of sound that further deepened the trance state and focused the shaman's intent, creating a protective shield for their spiritual voyage into the unknown. This combination of drumming and chanting was a meticulously orchestrated event, a sacred performance that engaged the entire community. The tribe would gather around the fire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, their bodies swaying to the powerful unifying rhythm. The sound was a communal anchor, a shared frequency that bound them together and focused their collective energy to support the shaman's perilous journey. In this way, the shamanic trance was never a purely solitary act. It was a communal ritual where the sacred drumbeat connected the heart of the shaman to the heart of the tribe, and the heart of the tribe to the very heartbeat of the cosmos itself. Section 3. The ecstatic journey pathways to altered states. While rhythm was the vehicle, the shaman employed a variety of powerful techniques to fuel the engine of their ecstatic journey. The path to trance was often paved with intense physical and mental discipline, a form of primitive asceticism designed to break the body's and mind's attachment to ordinary reality. Fasting was a common and crucial practice. By abstaining from food for days on end, the shaman would purify their body, heighten their senses, and induce a state of physiological stress that made the mind more receptive to visionary experiences. This emptiness created a sacred space within, making the shaman a hollow vessel ready to be filled by the spirits they sought to encounter on their inner travels. Solitude and sensory deprivation were also essential tools in the shaman's kit. They would retreat from the community, seeking out places of power in the natural world, a remote cave, a deep forest, or a mountaintop. In the profound silence and darkness of these locations, stripped of all external stimuli, the shaman's inner world would blossom with astonishing vividness. The boundaries between self and world would begin to blur, and the mind, free from its usual distractions, could more easily embark on its flight. This deliberate isolation was a journey into the self, a confrontation with one's own fears and limitations, which had to be overcome before one could safely navigate the spirit realms for others. In many traditions, the journey into trance was amplified through the use of psychoactive plants, revered as sacred teachers. Substances like peyote, ayahuasca, or hallucinogenic mushrooms were not used recreationally, but were ingested within a highly controlled, ritualistic context. These plants were considered spirits themselves, powerful allies that could tear open the doors of perception and reveal the underlying architecture of the universe. Under the influence of these plant teachers, shamans reported seeing intricate geometric patterns, encountering intelligent entities, and receiving profound wisdom about healing, the nature of reality, and the destiny of their tribe. This was not an escape from reality, but a journey into a reality deemed deeper and more fundamental. Finally, the most visually striking method was the ecstatic dance. The shaman would spin, leap, and gyrate with wild abandon, their movements becoming more frenetic as the drumming intensified. This was not a performance but a physical prayer, a way of shaking the soul loose from the confines of the body. The dance was a form of kinetic meditation that led to exhaustion and ultimately, collapse. At the peak of this physical and sensory overload, the shaman would fall into a deep trance, their consciousness now fully liberated to travel the cosmic pathways. This state of collapse was the moment of departure, where the shaman left their physical form behind to begin their vital work in the spirit world. Section 4. Healing and Wisdom, the shaman's communal role. The shaman's ecstatic journey was never undertaken for personal enlightenment alone. It was a sacred duty performed in service to the community. The ultimate purpose of piercing the veil between worlds was to bring back something of value, healing, wisdom, or power. One of the shaman's most critical roles was that of the healer. In the shamanic worldview, illness was often understood as a spiritual affliction, such as the loss of a part of the soul due to trauma or fright, or the intrusion of a malevolent spirit into the body of the afflicted person. The shaman's task was to journey into the spirit world to diagnose the cause of the ailment. Once the diagnosis was made, the healing work would begin. If a soul part was lost, the shaman would have to track it down, negotiate with whatever spirits were holding it captive, and persuade it to return to the patient's body. This process, known as soul retrieval, was a dramatic and perilous undertaking in the inner realms. If the illness was caused by a spiritual intrusion, the shaman would have to engage in psychic combat, summoning their spirit allies to help them extract and neutralize the harmful energy. This spiritual surgery was a direct and active intervention, a testament to the belief that the health of the body and the spirit were inextricably linked. Beyond healing individuals, the shaman was the keeper of cosmic balance for the entire tribe. They would perform rituals to ensure successful hunts, to call for rain during a drought, or to pacify the spirits of the land. They acted as diviners, journeying into the future to foresee challenges or opportunities for the community. By communicating with the spirits of the game animals, they could learn where the herds were located and ensure that hunters would be successful, thus guaranteeing the tribe's survival. Their work was profoundly practical, aimed at maintaining the delicate harmony between the human world and the forces of nature upon which life depended. The shaman also served as the community's psychopomp, the conductor of souls. When a member of the tribe died, it was the shaman's duty to guide the soul of the deceased safely to its final resting place in the land of the dead. This was a crucial role, preventing the soul from becoming lost and wandering as a troubled ghost, and providing immense comfort and closure to the grieving family. In all these functions, as healer, diviner, and psychopomp, the shaman reinforced the community's sense of place in a living, sacred cosmos. Their ecstatic trance was not an escape from the world, but a profound engagement with it, a timeless practice of weaving the threads of spirit and earth together for the good of all. Section 1. The Fire Within. Tapasya, and the art of self-purification. As shamanic traditions flowed into the river of civilization, it was in the fertile spiritual soil of India that the practice of asceticism became a highly structured and sophisticated science of the soul. Here, the raw, instinctual journey of the shaman evolved into a deeply philosophical and methodical quest for liberation. India became the undisputed cradle of organized asceticism, giving birth to practices of self-discipline so intense they have captivated and bewildered the world for millennia. At the core of this tradition lies the ancient concept of tapasya. The Sanskrit word tapasis literally means to heat or to burn. It represents a form of spiritual alchemy, the conscious generation of an inner fire through intense self-discipline, designed to incinerate impurities, burn away karmic debt, and forge the practitioner into a vessel capable of holding divine power. This practice of tapasya was not mere self-punishment, it was a powerful technology for spiritual transformation. The ancient sages, known as rishis, believed that the human body and mind were storehouses of immense potential energy, or shakti. However, in an ordinary person, this energy is dissipated through endless desires, sensory attachments, and mental chatter. The yogi, through the rigorous practice of tapas, sought to plug these leaks and redirect this flow of energy inward and upward. By voluntarily embracing hardship, such as fasting, exposure to the elements, and maintaining difficult postures, the ascetic accumulated a tremendous amount of spiritual heat. This inner fire was thought to grant supernatural powers, or siddhis, and ultimately lead to moksha, or liberation from the cycle of rebirth. The forests and mountains of ancient India became the laboratories for these spiritual experiments. Yogis, known as tapasvins, would withdraw from the clamor of society, seeking solitude in the heart of nature. They would cast off their clothes, a symbolic rejection of societal norms and material identity, living either naked or clad in minimal loincloths. Their survival depended on the forest itself, as they subsisted on a meager diet of roots, wild fruits, and water. Some would undertake vows of extreme austerity, such as standing on one leg for years, holding an arm aloft until it withered, or surrounding themselves with fires in the heat of summer. These acts were a testament to their unwavering resolve to conquer the body's demands and subordinate the physical self to the will of the spirit. Through this intense burning, the yogi aimed to transcend the dualities that govern ordinary life: pleasure and pain, heat and cold, honor and disgrace. By mastering their physical and mental reactions to these extremes, they sought to achieve a state of profound equanimity and inner freedom. The fire of tapasya was intended to burn away the ego, the limited sense of I that keeps the soul bound to the material world. It was a radical process of purification, a trial by fire undertaken by choice, in the belief that through the crucible of self-imposed austerity, the mortal man could be reborn as a being of divine consciousness, forever free from the chains of worldly suffering and illusion. Within the Hindu tradition, the path of the ascetic finds its most formal expression in the institution of sannyasa, the final stage of life in the classical Vedic system. A sannyasi is a renunciant, one who has performed their own funeral rites, symbolically dying to their old self, their family, their caste, and all their worldly possessions and identities. This act represents, really, the ultimate liberation from social obligation, freeing the individual to pursue the singular goal of spiritual realization, without any distraction. The sannyasi cuts all ties, becoming a homeless wanderer, a pilgrim on a journey not to a physical destination, but to the discovery of their true nature as Atman, the eternal self, and its identity with Brahman, the supreme cosmic reality. The life of a sannyasi is one of radical simplicity and complete dependence on divine providence. They own nothing more than a staff, a water pot, and a begging bowl. They wear simple saffron-colored robes, a color that symbolizes the fire of knowledge that has burned away all their worldly attachments. They do not cook or store food, but instead rely on the alms given to them by householders. This practice of begging is not seen as a demeaning act, but as a spiritual discipline. It cultivates humility, destroys pride, and constantly reminds the sannyasi of their interdependence and their trust in a higher power to provide for their basic needs from one day to the next. Their daily routine is dedicated entirely to spiritual practices. They rise before the sun for hours of meditation, chanting of mantras and study of sacred scriptures like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. A sannyasi is perpetually on the move, never staying in one place for more than a few days, to avoid forming new attachments to people or places. They wander from one holy site to another, their life a continuous pilgrimage. This constant movement mirrors the internal state they seek to cultivate, one of non-attachment and detachment from the ever-changing phenomenal world. Their homelessness is a powerful outer symbol of their inner state of being at home everywhere and nowhere at once, rooted only in the changeless reality of the Absolute. The sannyasi embodies the ideal of the living liberated soul, or jivan mukta, one who is free while still in a physical body. Having conquered desire and fear, they move through the world, but are not of it. Their presence is considered a blessing, and householders who offer them food believe they are earning spiritual merit. They are living reminders to the rest of society of the ultimate purpose of life beyond material success. They represent the courage to abandon everything the world holds dear in the passionate pursuit of a truth that is timeless and eternal. The sannyasi's journey is a solitary and demanding one, a testament to the profound Hindu conviction that true freedom is found not in acquiring more, but in becoming free from the need to acquire anything at all. While the path of the yogi and sannyasi was often one of austere, solitary discipline, a powerful new wave of spiritual expression swept across India during the medieval period. This was the Bhakti movement, a revolution of the heart that emphasized devotion, love, and a personal relationship with God over ritualistic observance or intellectual philosophy. The Bhakti saints taught that the most direct path to the divine was not through harsh asceticism or scholarly knowledge, but through pure, unadulterated love. This movement democratized spirituality, making it accessible to everyone, regardless of caste, gender, or education. The key was not what you renounced, but how intensely you could love God. This devotional path gave rise to a new form of ecstatic spiritual practice, kirtan, Kirtan is a call-and-response style of chanting the names and glories of God, accompanied by musical instruments like drums, cymbals, and harmoniums. It is a form of collective prayer and meditation that is vibrant, emotional, and deeply engaging. One of the most influential figures in this tradition was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a 15th-century saint from Bengal, who is considered an incarnation of Krishna by his followers. Chaitanya and his disciples would take to the streets, leading massive processions of people from all walks of life, singing and dancing in a state of spiritual ecstasy, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. For the practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, Kirtan is far more than just music. It is a profound spiritual practice designed to purify the heart and awaken the soul's innate love for the divine. The chanting is not a performance for an audience but a deep personal offering, a call from the soul to the Supreme Soul. As the chanting builds in tempo and intensity, it creates a powerful collective energy that can transport participants to a state of heightened consciousness. The analytical mind quiets down, the sense of individual self begins to dissolve into the group, and the heart opens to experience a flood of spiritual emotions, from deep longing to overwhelming joy, and a feeling of intoxicating divine love. This state of divine intoxication, or prema, is the ultimate goal of kirtan. In this state, the devotee loses all awareness of the external world, their consciousness completely absorbed in the divine presence invoked by the sacred sound. They may weep, laugh, or dance with an abandon that appears mad to an outside observer, but which is, for them, a direct and tangible experience of communion with God. The Bhakti movement and its practice of kirtan demonstrated that the path of asceticism was not limited to solitary withdrawal. It could also be a path of ecstatic engagement, a dance of divine love where the soul surrenders not through austerity, but through the overwhelming power of devotion. At the most extreme and misunderstood edge of Hindu asceticism stand the Aghori. They are a small and reclusive sect of Shaivite ascetics, devotees of the god Shiva in his most fearsome form as Bhairava, the destroyer. The Aghori path is a radical, non-dualistic tantric path that deliberately seeks to transgress societal taboos as a means of spiritual advancement. Their philosophy is rooted in the belief that if Brahman, the ultimate reality, is all-pervading and absolute, then there can be no distinction between pure and impure, good and evil, or beautiful and repulsive. To truly realize this non-dual reality, the Aghori intentionally embraces everything that society deems defiling and fearsome. Their chosen abode is the cremation ground, or shmashan, a place that ordinary people avoid as terrifying and unclean. For the Aghori, however, the cremation ground is a sacred space, a powerful reminder of the impermanence of all things and the ultimate reality of death. Here, surrounded by the symbols of mortality, they meditate, often sitting on a corpse. This practice is not for shock value. It is a profound meditative technique designed to confront and conquer the most primal of all human fears, the fear of death. By directly and intimately confronting mortality, the Aghor seeks to transcend it, realizing their true identity as the immortal, formless consciousness that witnesses the endless cycle of life and death. The practices of the Aghori are deliberately shocking to conventional sensibilities. They may smear their bodies with human cremation ash, wear ornaments made of human bone, and use a human skull as their ritual bowl for food and drink. They are known to consume feces, urine, and the flesh of human corpses, substances that are considered the epitome of pollution. For the Aghori, these acts are the ultimate test of non-discrimination. By consuming what is most reviled, they seek to shatter their own internal conditioning and egoic attachments to concepts of purity and disgust. It is an extreme form of spiritual therapy, a direct assault on the mind's tendency to create dualistic judgments, forcing it to see the divine in all things, without exception. The path of the Aghori is undeniably dangerous, and not meant for the faint of heart. It is a razor's edge, where the line between madness and enlightenment is perilously thin. They are often feared and reviled by mainstream society, yet they are also revered by some as living embodiments of Shiva's untamed, destructive creative energy. The Aghori ascetic represents the absolute outer limit of the human quest to break free from illusion. Their radical practices serve as a stark and powerful statement. To find God, one must be willing to look in the darkest of places, to embrace the most terrifying of truths, and to destroy every last vestige of fear and dualism that separates the individual soul from the all-encompassing whole. The story of Buddhism begins with a prince who had everything the world could offer, yet felt a profound emptiness within. Prince Siddhartha Gautama, raised in a palace of luxury and shielded from all forms of suffering, eventually encountered the harsh realities of life: old age, sickness, and death. These encounters shattered his sheltered worldview and ignited within him an urgent quest for a truth that could overcome the universal reality of suffering. Leaving behind his wife, child, and kingdom, Siddhartha embarked on the path of the ascetic, believing that the harshest self-denial was the key to liberation. He sought out the most renowned masters of austerity, diving headfirst into the extreme practices that were prevalent in the India of his time. For 6 grueling years, Siddhartha subjected his body to unimaginable hardships, pushing the limits of human endurance in his relentless search for enlightenment. He practiced extreme breath control, holding his breath until he felt excruciating pain in his head and body. He exposed himself to the scorching sun and the freezing cold with minimal clothing. His fasting became so severe that he was reduced to a mere skeleton, surviving on a single grain of rice or a single jujube fruit per day. His radiant skin turned dark, his bones protruded through his flesh, and his strength withered away completely. He became a living embodiment of the ascetic ideal, yet despite his almost superhuman efforts, the ultimate truth he sought remained elusive, just beyond his grasp. One day, while bathing in a river, he became so weak that he collapsed and nearly drowned. This near-death experience became a profound turning point. He realized that torturing the body did not lead to a liberated mind. In fact, by weakening the physical instrument, he had also weakened his mind, making it unable to achieve the clarity and focus needed for deep meditation. A body emaciated by starvation and a mind tormented by pain were not conducive to spiritual awakening. He understood that his path of extreme self-mortification was just as much of an obstacle as the path of sensual indulgence he had left behind in his palace. Both were extremes, and neither led to true freedom. It was in this moment of profound insight that Siddhartha discovered the middle way. He accepted a humble offering of milk rice from a village girl named Sujata, breaking his long fast and regaining his physical strength. He recognized that the path to enlightenment lay not in indulgence or in self-torture, but in a balanced, mindful approach to life. It was a path that nourished the body just enough to support a clear and tranquil mind. With his strength restored and his mind now poised and balanced, he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, vowing not to rise until he had found the answer to suffering. This middle way became the foundational principle of Buddhism, a revolutionary path that balanced discipline with compassion for oneself. After attaining enlightenment and becoming the Buddha, or the awakened one, he began to teach the path he had discovered. Those who chose to follow him and dedicate their lives to this path formed the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns. This monastic community was designed as a supportive environment, a place where individuals could practice the middle way, shielded from the complexities and distractions of worldly life. The life of a Buddhist monk, or bhikkhu, and a nun, or bhikkhuni, was one of simplicity, discipline, and mindfulness, governed by a detailed set of rules known as the Vinaya. These rules were not intended as punishments but as practical guidelines to help cultivate inner peace and wisdom. The daily life within a monastery was structured to promote constant awareness and detachment. Monks would rise long before dawn, beginning their day with chanting and meditation in the quiet stillness of the early morning. A core principle of their discipline was radical simplicity in material possessions. A monk was permitted to own only a few essential items: their robes, a begging bowl, a needle, a water strainer, and a razor. They renounced all personal wealth and family ties, embracing a life of voluntary poverty. This was not a sign of deprivation, but a declaration of freedom. Freedom from the burden of ownership, from the anxiety of protecting possessions, and from the social status that comes with wealth. One of the most visible practices was the daily alms round. Each morning, the monks would walk silently through the local village, their begging bowls held out before them. They would accept whatever food lay people chose to offer, without making any requests or showing preference. This practice served multiple purposes. For the monks, it was a profound lesson in humility and dependence, reminding them that their survival was a gift from the community. It also cultivated mindfulness, as they were to walk with their gaze lowered and their minds calm. For the lay community, offering food was a way to practice generosity, or dana, and to earn spiritual merit by supporting those who dedicated their lives to the path of liberation. The discipline also extended to their eating habits. Monks were typically required to eat only once a day, before noon. This practice was designed to reduce the time and energy spent on food preparation and consumption, freeing up more of the day for meditation and study. It also helped to cultivate moderation and to weaken the powerful craving for sensory pleasure associated with eating. The rhythm of monastic life, with its strict schedule, its code of conduct, and its emphasis on simplicity, was a carefully constructed framework. It was a spiritual gymnasium where every action, from walking and eating to speaking and listening, became an opportunity to practice mindfulness and move closer to the ultimate goal of nirvana, the cessation of suffering. At the very core of the Buddhist monastic path, and indeed of the Buddha's entire teaching, lies the practice of meditation. While chanting and discipline are important supports, it is through the direct experiential exploration of the mind that true liberation is said to be found. The Buddha taught various meditative techniques, but one of the most central and profound is vipassana, which translates to insight or clear seeing. Vipassana is not about emptying the mind or escaping from reality. On the contrary, it is a practice of paying meticulous, non-judgmental attention to reality as it is, moment by moment within one's own body and mind. It is a journey of self-observation aimed at understanding the fundamental nature of existence. The practice often begins with anapana, the mindfulness of breathing. The meditator sits in a stable, upright posture and simply observes the natural sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves the nostrils. This is not a breathing exercise. The breath is not controlled or manipulated in any way. It serves as an anchor, a neutral point of focus to help calm and concentrate the mind. As the mind inevitably wanders, caught up in thoughts, memories, or plans, the instruction is simply to notice that it has wandered and gently, without any self-criticism, return the attention to the breath. This simple act, repeated thousands of times, trains the mind in patience, perseverance, and the art of being present. Once a degree of mental stability is established, the practice expands into vipassana proper. The meditator begins to systematically scan their own body, observing the full range of physical sensations that arise and pass away: heat, cold, tingling, pressure, pain, and pleasure. The key is to observe these sensations with perfect equanimity, without reacting with craving for the pleasant ones or aversion to the unpleasant ones. Through this direct observation, the meditator begins to experience a profound truth taught by the Buddha, the law of impermanence, or anicca. They see for themselves that every sensation, no matter how solid or intense it seems, is in a constant state of flux, arising and vanishing from moment to moment. This direct experience of impermanence leads to deeper insights. The meditator realizes that clinging to anything that is inherently changing is a source of suffering, or dukkha. They also begin to see the selfless, or anatta, nature of their experience, that there is no permanent, unchanging or self behind the ever-changing flow of mental and physical phenomena. This is not an intellectual understanding but a deeply felt experiential wisdom. Long hours spent in silent vipassana meditation are the monk's primary work. It is in this profound stillness that the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion are gradually weakened and eventually eradicated, leading to the unshakable peace of final liberation. While the core of Buddhist practice often emphasizes silent inward contemplation in the majestic and mystical landscapes of the Himalayas, a unique and vibrant form of meditative expression emerged. In Tibetan Buddhism, a tradition rich with tantric influences, the path to enlightenment is often visualized as a dynamic and energetic process. This found its most spectacular expression in the cham dance, a sacred mass dance performed by monks in monastery courtyards. To the uninformed observer, a cham dance might appear to be a colorful, theatrical folk performance. However, for the monks who perform it and the devout who watch it, it is a profound and powerful form of meditation in motion, a sacred ritual of immense spiritual significance. Each element of the cham dance is laden with deep symbolism. The elaborate, often wrathful-looking masks do not represent demons in the Western sense, but rather the fierce, compassionate energy of enlightened beings who work to destroy the obstacles to enlightenment. The colorful brocade costumes, the intricate steps, and the symbolic hand gestures or mudras all have specific meanings derived from sacred texts. The dance is accompanied by the powerful sounds of traditional Tibetan instruments. Long horns, booming drums, and clashing cymbals, which are believed to invoke the presence of the deities being portrayed and to create a sacred space for the ritual to unfold effectively. The preparation for a cham dance is an intensive spiritual practice in itself. The monks who are chosen to be dancers must undergo long periods of purification, prayer, and meditation. Before donning the mask and costume of a particular deity, the monk will spend hours, sometimes days, in deep meditation, visualizing the deity, reciting its mantra, and identifying with its enlightened qualities. The goal is to dissolve one's own ordinary ego identity and to truly embody the spirit and wisdom of the deity. When the monk finally steps into the courtyard to dance, they are not merely acting a part, they are, in a meditative sense, becoming the deity. Their dance is a manifestation of that divine energy in the world. The purpose of the cham dance is multifaceted. It is performed to purify the land and its inhabitants, to drive away negative forces and obstacles, and to bestow blessings upon the community. For the audience, watching the dance is considered a powerful spiritual teaching, a way of planting a seed of enlightenment in their mind stream. For the dancer, it is a demanding form of trance meditation. The intense focus required to execute the complex choreography while maintaining the deep meditative visualization of the deity leads to a state of profound concentration. The dance becomes a physical expression of the destruction of the ego, a sacred performance where the boundaries between the human and the divine blur, all in the service of awakening. In the ancient lands of Persia, long before many of the world's major religions had taken form, the prophet Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, introduced a spiritual vision that would shape an empire and influence faiths for millennia to come. At the heart of Zoroastrianism lies a profound and elegant concept, Asha. This single, powerful word encapsulates the divine order of the universe, encompassing truth, righteousness, justice, and purity. For Zoroastrians, the entire cosmos is a battleground between Asha, the principle of light and order represented by the supreme god, Ahura Mazda, and its opposite, Druj, the principle of falsehood, chaos, and decay. The human soul is a soldier in this cosmic war, and its primary duty is to align itself with Asha in every aspect of life. This worldview gave rise to a unique form of spiritual discipline, one that differed significantly from the extreme self-mortification seen in other traditions. Zoroastrian asceticism was not primarily focused on punishing the body or withdrawing from the world. Instead, it was an active, life-affirming practice centered on maintaining a state of ritual and moral purity. Life itself was seen as a precious gift from Ahura Mazda, and the material world was not a prison to be escaped but a sacred realm to be cared for and kept pure. The goal was not to renounce the world but to perfect it, to make it a fitting vessel for the divine order of Asha, thereby aiding Ahura Mazda in the ultimate victory of good over evil. The central symbol and focus of Zoroastrian worship is fire, known as Atar. Fire is considered the living embodiment of Ahura Mazda on earth, a physical representation of light, warmth, and most importantly, purity. Daily prayers are conducted facing a source of fire, whether it be the sacred flames tended by priests in fire temples or the sun itself. This act of prayer is a constant realignment of the self with the forces of light and truth. The religion places a tremendous emphasis on maintaining the purity of the natural elements, earth, water, and air, as they too are sacred creations of Ahura Mazda. This deep ecological consciousness, rooted in spiritual belief, made Zoroastrians pioneers of environmental protection. Therefore, the Zoroastrian spiritual path was less about retreat and more about engagement. It was a call to live in the world with constant mindfulness, making conscious choices that promoted truth and order. The discipline was internal, a matter of mental, verbal, and practical integrity. A Zoroastrian sought to be a warrior for Asha, fighting the good fight not through dramatic acts of self-denial, but through the steady, consistent practice of a pure and righteous life. Their quest was to make their own soul, and by extension the world around them, a clean mirror that could perfectly reflect the divine light of Ahura Mazda, pushing back the shadows of falsehood one good deed at a time. The practical application of Asha in daily life is beautifully summarized in the core Zoroastrian maxim, Humata, Hukta, Huvarshta, which translates to good thoughts, good words, good deeds. This simple yet profound triad forms the bedrock of Zoroastrian moral asceticism. It is a constant, moment-to-moment spiritual practice that requires vigilant self-awareness and discipline. The path begins in the mind, with humata, or good thoughts. A Zoroastrian is taught to actively cultivate a mind free from malice, envy, and falsehood. They must stand guard at the gates of their mind, preventing negative thoughts from taking root, as thoughts are the seeds from which all words and actions grow. This mental purity is the first and most crucial battleground in the war against Druj. From the purity of thought flows hukta, or good words. Speech is considered a powerful creative force that can either build up or tear down the order of the world. Therefore, a follower of Zarathustra must practice truthfulness, kindness, and sincerity in their speech. Lying, slander, and harsh words are seen as direct manifestations of Druj, polluting the spiritual atmosphere and strengthening the forces of chaos. Instead, their words should be instruments of asha, used to encourage, to heal, and to express the truth. The discipline of holding one's tongue from negativity and speaking only what is good and right is a form of asceticism as rigorous as any physical austerity, demanding constant inner control and mindfulness. Finally, good thoughts and good words must culminate in huvarshta, or good deeds. Zoroastrianism is a religion of action, emphasizing charity, hard work, and contributing positively to the community. Idleness is discouraged, while diligence and productivity are praised as virtues that support the order and prosperity of the world. Unlike traditions that might encourage fasting as a primary spiritual practice, Zoroastrians generally rejected it. They believed that a strong, healthy body was necessary to effectively carry out good deeds and fight for asha. Excessive self-punishment was seen as weakening the soldier of God, thus hindering the cosmic struggle. Their discipline was channeled into productive labor, social justice, and acts of kindness that made the world a better, purer place. This ethical framework created a spiritual path that was deeply integrated into everyday life. There was no sharp division between the sacred and the profane. Every moment was an opportunity to choose asha over druj. The discipline was not found in retreating to a cave, but in conducting business honestly, in raising a family with integrity, and in treating one's neighbors with respect. The Zoroastrian ascetic was a householder, a farmer, a craftsman, an ordinary person living an extraordinarily mindful life. Their path demonstrates that the quest for spiritual purity does not always require a flight from the world, but can be a steadfast commitment to transforming it from within through the simple, powerful, and relentless practice of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Around the time of Jesus, as the land of Judea simmered with religious and political fervor, a number of devout Jewish groups sought a deeper, more direct connection with God, away from what they saw as the corrupted temple practices in Jerusalem. Among the most dedicated of these were the Essenes, a mysterious and highly disciplined ascetic community. To escape the impurities of the world and prepare for the coming of the Messiah, they withdrew into the stark and silent wilderness, establishing communities in remote places like Qumran, on the desolate shores of the Dead Sea. Theirs was a life of extreme ritual purity, communal living, and intense devotion, a testament to their unwavering commitment to God's law. Life in an Essene community was governed by incredibly strict rules. New members had to undergo a lengthy probationary period, after which they would turn over all their worldly possessions to the community, embracing a life of absolute poverty and equality. They lived and ate together, sharing all things in common, a radical departure from the society of their time. Central to their daily life was the practice of ritual bathing. They would immerse themselves in purifying waters or mikvot multiple times a day, especially before their communal meals. This was not for physical cleanliness alone, it was a profound spiritual act, a constant washing away of any ritual impurity to maintain a state of perfect holiness before God. The Essenes practiced a rigorous asceticism that included strict dietary laws and, for many of them, complete celibacy, a practice highly unusual in Judaism. They saw this as the ultimate act of devotion, freeing them from worldly distractions to focus entirely on spiritual matters. Their days were a structured rhythm of prayer, work, and study. They were meticulous scribes, and it is widely believed that the community at Qumran was responsible for copying and preserving the precious collection of texts we now know as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their work was not just labor, it was a sacred act, a way of preserving God's holy word for a future, more righteous generation. Their entire existence was oriented towards a messianic future. They saw themselves as the true sons of light, engaged in a spiritual battle against the sons of darkness, and they lived in a state of constant readiness for the final war that would usher in the reign of God. Their retreat to the desert was not an escape but a strategic withdrawal, a way to create a sanctuary of perfect purity in an impure world. The Essenes represent a powerful strand of Jewish mysticism that sought holiness not just in the temple, but in the disciplined life of a dedicated community, finding in the silence of the desert a place to hear the voice of God more clearly. Living at the same time as the Essenes, but in the Hellenistic cultural melting pot of Egypt near Alexandria, was another remarkable Jewish ascetic group known as the Therapeuti, a name which means healers or worshippers. Described in detail by the first-century Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria, the Therapeuti took the ideal of contemplative life to an even greater extreme. While the Essenes lived in structured communities, the Therapeuti embraced a more solitary existence. Both men and women, known as Therapeutides and Therapeutrides, would renounce their property and families to live a life dedicated almost entirely to prayer, philosophy, and the allegorical interpretation of the scriptures. Their lifestyle was one of profound simplicity and solitude. Each member lived in their own separate, humble hut, which they called a monasterion. These huts contained nothing more than the bare essentials, along with their treasured copies of the sacred scriptures. For 6 days a week, they lived in near total isolation. They would not see or speak to anyone, spending their time in deep contemplation, seeking to uncover the hidden mystical meanings within the Torah. Their asceticism was centered on the mind and spirit. They fasted from conversation and social contact, believing that in the profound silence, the soul could better commune with the divine and receive spiritual healing and insight. Their diet was as simple as their living quarters. They ate nothing before sunset, and their meals consisted only of plain bread with salt and hyssop and water to drink. Many would go for several days without any food at all, their minds so engrossed in the feast of spiritual wisdom that they forgot the needs of the body. This disciplined life of solitude and simple sustenance was designed to elevate the soul above the demands of the flesh, to make it a pure vessel for divine revelation. Their goal was to achieve a state of spiritual ecstasy, not through frenzied dance, but through the intense, quiet joy of philosophical and mystical understanding. The climax of their week was the Sabbath, the seventh day. On this day they would break their solitude and gather together. Dressed in white, they would listen to a discourse from their eldest member, followed by a simple, meatless meal. The gathering would culminate in a sacred vigil that lasted all night. Here, they would form 2 choirs, one of men and one of women, and sing hymns of thanksgiving to God, sometimes in unison, sometimes in call and response. As the night deepened, their joyous devotion would overflow into ecstatic movement, a form of sacred dance. The Therapeuti show us a path where deep, silent introspection and ecstatic communal celebration are not opposites but 2 sides of the same coin in the mystical quest for God. With the rise of Christianity, the ascetic impulse found fertile new ground, blossoming with a fervor that would shape the spiritual landscape of the Western world. Inspired by the examples of John the Baptist and Jesus' 40 days of fasting in the wilderness, a new breed of spiritual athlete emerged. These were the Desert Fathers and Mothers, Christian hermits who, beginning in the 3rd century CE, turned their backs on the growing comfort and institutionalization of the Church. They sought a more radical, direct, and personal encounter with God, and they believed the harsh, unforgiving crucible of the desert was the ideal place to find it. They fled the cities of Egypt, Palestine, and Syria, seeking God in the profound silence and solitude of the wastelands. Figures like Saint Anthony the Great became legends in their own time, pioneering a life of extreme renunciation. Saint Anthony famously retreated into the Egyptian desert, living for years in an abandoned fort and later in a remote cave, dedicating his entire existence to prayer and fasting. These hermits believed that the desert was not only a place of quiet contemplation, but also a realm inhabited by demons. Their spiritual practice was often depicted as an intense, ongoing battle against these inner and outer forces of temptation. The demons they fought were the personifications of their own deepest fears, desires, and attachments: pride, gluttony, lust, and despair. By confronting and conquering these inner demons through relentless prayer, they aimed to purify their souls completely. The life of a desert hermit was one of incredible austerity. They lived in simple caves or makeshift huts, wore rough clothing and subsisted on a meager diet of bread, salt and water, often fasting for days on end. They slept little, spending their nights in long vigils of prayer, wrestling with their thoughts and seeking divine communion. Their asceticism was a physical and spiritual warfare, a deliberate stripping away of every comfort and distraction that could stand between the soul and God. They embraced hardship not for its own sake, but as a tool to cultivate humility, break the will of the ego, and create a state of inner emptiness where the divine presence could finally be felt. Despite their isolation, the wisdom of these desert fathers spread far and wide. Disciples and pilgrims would venture into the wilderness, seeking their counsel and spiritual guidance. Their teachings, recorded in collections like the Sayings of the Fathers, are filled with profound psychological insight and practical advice on the spiritual life. They were the pioneers of Christian solitude, demonstrating that the path to God could be forged not only in community, but in the stark, silent, and challenging depths of the individual human heart. Their radical witness established the desert as a powerful symbol of spiritual purification and direct encounter with the divine within the Christian tradition. While the solitary life of the desert hermit was a powerful ideal, it was also a path fraught with peril, both physical and psychological. Many recognize that for most seekers, a more structured and communal approach to the ascetic life was needed. This led to the development of Christian monasticism, where individuals could pursue a life of devotion within the supportive framework of a community. Saint Pachomius, a contemporary of Saint Anthony, is credited with organizing the first Cenobitic or community-based monasteries in Egypt. These early communities balanced the hermit's ideal of prayer and solitude with the practical necessity of shared labor, worship, and mutual support, creating a sustainable model for the ascetic life. In the West, this monastic movement was given its definitive shape by Saint Benedict of Nursia in the 6th century. His Rule of Saint Benedict became the foundational text for Western monasticism, a masterpiece of spiritual wisdom and practical organization. The Rule established a balanced rhythm of daily life, revolving around the three pillars of ora et labora, prayer and work, as well as sacred reading. Monks took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience to their abbot, surrendering their individual will to the will of God, as expressed through the community and its leader. This structured life was designed to cultivate humility and eradicate the self-centered pride that was seen as the root of all sin. Life in a Benedictine or Cistercian monastery was a highly disciplined affair. The day was punctuated by the Liturgy of the Hours, a series of 8 prayer services that began before dawn and ended after sunset, sanctifying every part of the day with psalms and scripture. Silence was highly valued and often maintained for long periods to foster an atmosphere of continuous prayer and contemplation. Manual labor, whether in the fields, the scriptorium, or the workshop, was not seen as a burden, but as a vital part of the spiritual path. It kept the monks grounded, served the needs of the community, and was considered a form of prayer in itself, an offering of one's physical energy to God. These monasteries became powerhouses of prayer and centers of learning and culture throughout the Middle Ages. They preserved ancient knowledge by meticulously copying manuscripts, developed new agricultural techniques, and provided charity and stability in a chaotic world. The monastery was a spiritual forge, a place where human souls were hammered into shape through a relentless routine of prayer, work, and discipline. It offered a different kind of warfare than that of the Desert Fathers, not a solitary battle against demons, but a communal struggle for holiness, where brothers supported one another on the difficult but steady path toward union with God. In the Christian East, particularly within the monasteries of the Eastern Orthodox Church, a unique and profound mystical tradition known as hesychasm flourished. The word hesychia means stillness, quiet, or tranquility, and the hesychasts were those who dedicated themselves to achieving this state of deep inner peace as a pathway to experiencing God directly. They developed a sophisticated psychophysical method of prayer designed to quiet the incessant chatter of the mind and unite the mind with the heart. This practice was not merely an intellectual exercise, but a holistic discipline involving the body, breath, and soul, aimed at fulfilling the biblical injunction to pray without ceasing. The core of hesychastic practice is the Jesus Prayer, a short, simple, and powerful invocation: "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner." This prayer is repeated continuously thousands of times a day until it becomes as natural and constant as one's own heartbeat. The hesychasts developed specific techniques to aid this process. They would often sit in a particular posture with their chin resting on their chest to help focus their attention inward. Crucially, they learned to coordinate the recitation of the prayer with the rhythm of their breathing, inhaling on the first part of the phrase and exhaling on the second. This synchronized the spiritual practice with the physical body, drawing the mind's attention out of the head and down into the spiritual center of the heart. The goal of this unceasing prayer was to achieve a state of pure contemplation, a quiet watchfulness in the heart. The hesychasts believed that through this disciplined practice, they could purify the heart from passions and logismoi, the distracting, tempting thoughts that cloud the soul. As the mind became still and the heart became pure, the practitioner could begin to experience the divine presence in a direct and tangible way. The ultimate fruit of this practice was the vision of the uncreated light, the same divine light that the apostles were said to have witnessed transfiguring Jesus on Mount Tabor. This was not a physical light but a direct mystical perception of God's divine energy or grace. This mystical path was not without controversy. It was famously defended by Saint Gregory Palamas in the 14th century, who articulated the theological distinction between God's unknowable essence and his knowable energies, which can be experienced by the purified human person. Hesychasm represents one of the deepest streams of Christian mysticism, a powerful testament to the belief that through stillness, discipline, and the constant invocation of the divine name, the human heart can become a sacred space, a throne room where the soul can experience a direct, ecstatic, and light-filled union with its creator. It is a path of profound interiority, a journey into the silent chamber of the heart to find the living God. While many Christian ascetic and mystical paths emphasized silence, structure, and solitude, there has always been a parallel stream that expressed its devotion through ecstatic and charismatic fervor. These movements, often emerging at the margins of the institutional church, bore a striking resemblance to the primal shamanic traditions of antiquity. They emphasized a direct, emotional, and often physical experience of the Holy Spirit, characterized by spontaneous expressions of joy, praise, and spiritual gifts. These groups believed that the Christian life was not meant to be a somber, intellectual affair, but a vibrant, spirit-filled experience that engaged the whole person, body, mind, and soul. Throughout Christian history, various groups have practiced forms of ecstatic worship. The Shakers in 18th century America, for example, derived their name from the convulsive shaking and ecstatic dancing that took place during their worship services. They believed that these physical manifestations were a sign of the Holy Spirit purging them of their sins and filling them with divine energy. Similarly, early Methodist love feasts and frontier revival meetings were often characterized by passionate preaching that led to outpourings of emotion, with people weeping, shouting, and falling into trance-like states, overwhelmed by a sense of God's presence and power. This ecstatic tradition found its most widespread modern expression in the rise of Pentecostalism and the charismatic movement in the 20th century. These movements place a central emphasis on a post-conversion experience called the baptism in the Holy Spirit, which is often accompanied by speaking in tongues, prophecy, and divine healing. Their worship services are typically vibrant and unstructured, characterized by loud, emotional singing, clapping, dancing, and spontaneous prayer. This form of worship is seen as a way of surrendering control of the rational mind and allowing the Holy Spirit to move freely, leading to a direct and exhilarating encounter with the divine. While seemingly at odds with the silent contemplation of the hesychast or the structured life of the Benedictine monk, these charismatic expressions share a common underlying goal: the transcendence of the ordinary self to experience a more profound reality. Whether through silent stillness or ecstatic praise, the aim is to break through the barriers of the ego and achieve a state of union with the divine. These movements demonstrate that the Christian path to mystical ecstasy is not a single, monolithic road. It is a rich and diverse landscape with many pathways, from the silent desert cave to the joyous revival tent, all leading toward the same ultimate destination, the overwhelming and transformative love of God. Within the vast and dynamic world of Islam, a deep mystical current began to flow, an esoteric path focused not just on the outer laws of religion, but on the inner state of the heart. This was Sufism, or Tasawwuf, the spiritual science of the Muslim world. Its origins are traced back to the very beginnings of Islam, inspired by the simple ascetic lifestyle, known as Zuhd, of the Prophet Muhammad himself, who mended his own clothes and warned against worldly attachment, and the profound devotion and inner knowledge of his closest companions and family, like his cousin and son-in-law, Imam Ali. These early mystics felt that as the Islamic empire grew in wealth and power, the true spiritual heart of the faith was at risk of being forgotten. So they turned away from worldly pursuits, choosing instead a life of intense prayer, fasting, and deep contemplation. These early Sufis were not a separate sect, but seekers from all walks of life who yearned for a direct, personal experience of God, or Allah. They believed that beyond the formal rituals and doctrines lay a deeper reality, a hidden truth that could only be accessed through the purification of the soul. They saw the human heart as a mirror, which in its natural state perfectly reflects the divine beauty. However, the dust of worldly desires, egoism, and sin clouds this mirror, obscuring the vision of God. The entire Sufi path, therefore, is a meticulous process of polishing this mirror through spiritual discipline, so that the divine light can once again shine within. This was a journey from the exterior shell of religion to its living, beating heart. The path of Zuhd, or Asceticism, was the first step on this journey. Early ascetics like Hassan al-Basri in the 8th century emphasized weeping for one's sins, fearing God's judgment and renouncing the deceptive allure of the material world. However, as the tradition evolved, this emphasis on fear began to shift towards an all-consuming emphasis on love. The great 8th century female mystic Rabia al-Adawiyya of Basra revolutionized Sufi thought by introducing the concept of selfless, passionate love for God. She famously prayed not out of fear of hell or desire for paradise, but purely for the love of God himself. This ishq-e-hakiki, or true love, became the central theme and the ultimate goal for generations of Sufis to come. This transformation from a path of fear-based asceticism to one of love-based mysticism opened the floodgates of poetic and ecstatic expression. The Sufi was no longer just a world-renouncing ascetic, but a passionate lover, a Majnun, driven mad by the beauty of the divine beloved. The world was no longer a temptation to be shunned, but a manifestation of the beloved's beauty, a collection of signs pointing back to the Creator. This passionate, intoxicating love for the divine would become the hallmark of Sufism, inspiring some of the most beautiful poetry the world has ever known, and giving birth to unique spiritual practices designed to facilitate the ultimate goal: the annihilation of the self in the overwhelming ocean of divine love. Central to the training of a Sufi aspirant or murid is the practice of intense spiritual retreat. One of the most rigorous and transformative of these retreats is the Chilla, a period of 40 days of seclusion, fasting, and prayer. The practice is inspired by the 40 days and nights the prophet Moses spent on Mount Sinai in communion with God. For the Sufi, the Chilla is a spiritual crucible, a period of concentrated effort designed to break the habits of the ego, the nafs, purify the soul, and open the seeker to divine inspiration and mystical insight. It is, a voluntary death to the world and the lower self, undertaken in the hope of being reborn into a higher state of consciousness. The conditions of the Chilla are deliberately harsh. The seeker is confined to a small, often dark cell, or a remote cave, cut off from all social contact. Their diet is drastically reduced, sometimes to just a few dates and a little water each day, a severe fast that weakens the body's hold over the spirit. Sleep is also minimized, with the majority of the night spent in prayer, meditation, and the repetition of sacred names and verses. This combination of isolation, fasting, and sleeplessness creates an extreme environment that pushes the seeker beyond their normal physical and psychological limits. It is, in a way, a controlled demolition of the ordinary self, designed to clear the ground for a new spiritual structure to be built. During this intense 40-day period, the seeker is forced to confront their own inner world with no distractions. All the hidden fears, suppressed desires, and deep-seated psychological patterns rise to the surface. It is a time of immense struggle, a true jihad al-nafs, or struggle against the self. The Sufi master, or sheikh, provides guidance and support from a distance, but the inner battle must be fought by the seeker alone. They must wrestle with their inner demons, the whispers of the ego that tempt them with doubt, despair, and the desire for worldly comfort. The discipline of constant prayer and remembrance of God is their only weapon in this profound spiritual warfare. If the seeker perseveres through this trial, the experience can be profoundly transformative. By starving the ego and polishing the heart with constant remembrance, the veils between the soul and God begin to thin. The seeker may experience visions, profound insights, and states of spiritual ecstasy. The chilla is a process of emptying, of creating a sacred void within the self. It is in this emptiness that the divine presence can be felt most powerfully. The seeker who enters the chilla as an ordinary person may, if successful, emerge 40 days later with a purified heart, a humbled ego, and a soul awakened to the subtle realities of the spiritual world, forever changed by their journey through the darkness into the light. While some Sufis sought God in the silence of the chilla, others found him in the ecstasy of sound and movement. This practice is known as sama, which literally means listening. It is a spiritual concert, a ceremony involving music, poetry, and dance, all designed to induce a state of mystical trance and divine love. No figure is more famously associated with this path than the 13th century Persian poet and mystic, Jalal al-Din Rumi. For Rumi, music and poetry were not mere entertainment, they were the language of the soul, a direct channel to the divine beloved. He believed that the soul, before entering the body, existed in harmony with God, and that the plaintive sound of the reed flute, or ney, was the sound of the soul crying out, remembering and longing for its original home. The practice of sama culminates in the iconic ritual of the whirling dervishes of the Mevlevi order, the Sufi brotherhood founded by Rumi's followers. This is not a performance but a deeply symbolic moving prayer. The dervish's tall camel hair hat represents the tombstone of the ego, and his white skirt represents the ego's shroud. When he removes his black cloak, he is symbolically reborn into the truth. With his arms crossed, he represents the number one, testifying to God's unity. As he begins to turn, his arms open. His right hand is raised to the heavens to receive God's grace, and his left hand is turned towards the earth to bestow that grace upon all of creation. He becomes a conduit between heaven and earth. The whirling itself is a profound meditative practice. The dervish pivots on his left foot, representing a fixed anchor in spiritual law, while the right foot propels him in a circle, symbolizing the journey through the physical world. As he turns and turns, accompanied by the hypnotic rhythms of the flute and drum, the physical world begins to blur and dissolve. The dervish enters a trance state, a sacred intoxication where the boundaries of the self melt away. The goal is fana, the annihilation of the individual ego in the vastness of the divine. He does not lose consciousness, rather, he attains a higher, more expansive consciousness, where the only reality is the presence of the beloved. This dance is a microcosm of the universe. Just as the planets revolve around the sun, the dervish revolves around his own heart, the center of his being, which is in turn revolving around the divine sun. It is a physical manifestation of the truth that everything in existence is in a constant state of worshipful circular motion. Rumi and the Mevlevi dervishes transformed asceticism into an art form, demonstrating that the path to God could be one of breathtaking beauty and ecstatic joy. Their whirling dance is a timeless and powerful symbol of the soul's surrender, a dizzying, graceful journey from the self, through the self, and ultimately, to the divine. In South Asia, the Malang and Kalandar mystics embody a wild, ecstatic Sufism, rejecting social norms to pursue divine love. Inspired by saints like Lal Shahbaz Kalandar and Bulleh Shah, they wear patchwork robes, live in radical poverty, and dance the Damal, a raw, frenzied expression of spiritual intoxication. Their antinomian lives defy religious formalism, insisting that love for the divine transcends all rules. For them, Damal is not ritual but surrender, a prayer of pure passion shattering ego in ecstatic movement. Their path is a living reminder. True spiritual freedom is as untamed as love itself. At the heart of Sufism lies dhikr, remembrance of God, polishing the heart through constant invocation. Whether whispered in solitude or chanted in unison, dhikr transforms the seeker, making every breath an act of devotion. Group dhikr with rhythmic chanting and swaying forges unity and deepens spiritual awareness. The goal to embody remembrance so fully that the seeker becomes a living mirror of the divine. Through dhikr, the dust of ego falls away, revealing the beloved within. Ancient spiritual paths now flow across the globe, reshaped by modern connectivity. Yoga, meditation, and Sufi music transcend borders. Practiced in studios, retreats, and concert halls worldwide. Rumi's poetry and Qawwali's devotion resonate with seekers far from their origins, speaking a universal language of the heart. As these traditions adapt, their meanings shift, but their appeal endures, offering solace in a restless material world. The mystic's wisdom is not obsolete. It's a guiding light for modern souls. In a global age, the search for meaning is more relevant than ever. As spiritual practices go global, many are stripped of religious roots and repackaged for wellness and self-improvement. Mindfulness and yoga, once paths to enlightenment, now promise stress relief and fitness, often losing their deeper purpose. Ecstatic dance echoes ancient rituals but is framed as therapy, not transcendence. This secularization broadens access but risks reducing profound traditions to mere commodities. The challenge to honor the depth and wisdom of these practices even in a secular world. True transformation requires more than technique, it calls for sincerity and respect for the sacred. Technology has revolutionized the spiritual quest, making ancient wisdom instantly accessible. Apps, online courses, and virtual communities connect seekers worldwide, democratizing spiritual knowledge. Yet the digital path can be shallow. True transformation still demands discipline and inner work. The mystic's journey remains an inward one, beyond screens and notifications. Technology is a tool. Its value depends on how deeply we engage. The dance of the soul continues, now set to a digital rhythm but always led by the longing heart. We have journeyed across continents and millennia, from the flickering firelight of the shaman's cave to the serene stillness of the Buddhist monastery, from the sun-scorched deserts of the Christian hermits to the whirling ecstasy of the Sufi lodge. We have witnessed a breathtaking diversity of paths, each with its unique language, rituals, and philosophy. We have seen the yogi mastering the body through fire and fasting, the Zoroastrian pursuing purity through good deeds, the Essene seeking holiness in communal discipline, and the dervish dissolving the self in a dance of divine love. On the surface, these traditions can appear profoundly different, separated by vast gulfs of doctrine and culture. Yet if we look beyond the outer forms, a profound and unifying thread reveals itself, a common purpose that binds them all together in a single, magnificent human story. This common thread is the universal human longing for transcendence, the innate desire to connect with a reality greater than our own limited ego. Each of these paths, in its own way, is a response to this fundamental call of the soul. They all begin with the recognition that ordinary life, with its endless cycle of desire and distraction, is somehow incomplete. They all share the foundational belief that there is more to existence than what meets the eye, a deeper truth, a sacred presence that can be experienced directly. This shared conviction is what motivates the seeker to step off the beaten path of worldly ambition and embark on the more arduous inward journey. It is the faith that by letting go of the transient, one can grasp the eternal. Furthermore, every tradition we have explored understands that this journey requires a radical act of self-purification. The methods may vary, from the physical austerity of the ascetic to the emotional surrender of the devotee, from the mental discipline of the meditator to the ethical rigor of the moralist. But the target is always the same, the ego. This small, constricted sense of self, with its fears, its pride, and its insatiable cravings, is universally identified as the primary obstacle to spiritual realization. Each tradition has developed its own sophisticated technology for dismantling this egoic structure, for polishing the mirror of the heart so that it can reflect the divine light without distortion. This shared project of ego transcendence is the very heart of the mystical quest across all cultures. Ultimately, these myriad paths are like different shores of a single boundless ocean. They are distinct entry points into the same great mystery of existence. The shaman's trance, the yogi's samadhi, the monk's nirvana, the mystic's union, and the dervish's fana are all different names for a similar ineffable experience. A moment of blissful dissolution where the sense of separation vanishes and the soul tastes its own infinite nature. The language and symbols used to describe this experience are shaped by culture, but the experience itself points to a universal human potential. The diversity of the paths does not point to a contradiction, but to the infinite generosity of the divine, which offers countless doorways into its presence. From the primal, rhythmic stomping of the tribal shaman to the graceful, cosmic spinning of the Sufi dervish, the dance has served as a powerful metaphor and a literal practice throughout this spiritual journey. This is the eternal dance of the soul, a movement that begins with a turning away from the outer world and a turning towards the inner landscape. It is a dance of separation and union, of longing and fulfillment, of the human reaching for the divine and the divine reaching for the human. Every act of renunciation, every silent prayer, every moment of ecstatic praise is a step in this sacred choreography. It is a dance that has been performed in every age and every culture by those who refuse to be satisfied by the mundane. This dance is, at its core, a journey home. The mystics of all traditions teach that our deepest suffering comes from a sense of exile, a feeling of being disconnected from our source. We wander through the world feeling like strangers, forgetting our true origin and our ultimate destination. The spiritual path is the process of remembering. It is the soul slowly, and sometimes painfully, retracing its steps back to the state of unity from which it came. The plaintive cry of the Sufi's flute, the silent meditation of the monk, and the heartfelt hymn of the contemplative are all expressions of this profound nostalgia for the divine, this deep-seated homesickness of the spirit. This journey is not merely a historical phenomenon, it is a living, breathing reality in our world today, and a potential within every human heart. The challenges of the modern age, the noise, the distraction, the sense of meaninglessness, have only intensified the soul's ancient longing. The quest for authenticity, for connection, and for a purpose larger than oneself continues to drive people to explore these timeless paths. Whether through a yoga class, a meditation app, or a pilgrimage to a sacred site, the dance continues. The human heart, in its relentless pursuit of truth, beauty, and love, will always find ways to express its innate desire for the infinite. And so, the story of the ascetic and the mystic is ultimately our own story. It is the story of the human spirit's incredible capacity for transformation and its unquenchable thirst for the divine. The paths are many, but the destination is one. It is the point of stillness at the center of the turning world, the state of perfect peace and boundless love that is our true inheritance. From the first drumbeat in the dawn of time to the silent prayers of this very moment, the eternal dance of the soul continues, a timeless, beautiful, and sacred journey back to the heart of God.